You can live a life full of love and light if you just let the Spirit guide you. It's the remedy where you'll find peace, but you must let the Spirit guide you.
Who made y'all priests?
What's up, world? This is our Fafore.
What's going on, good people? This is our Oseun. Welcome back to the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast, where we talk about our spiritual journeys, our everyday life experiences, and the issues of the times from the perspective of two people who just happen to be priests. Fafore, what's going on?
Man, I've been holding this thing for about 2 weeks.
2 weeks? That long?
2 weeks, man. I've been wanting to tell you for 2 weeks, but I'm like, I know I'm gonna share it with the family, so I gotta just hold off to tell you what I tell everybody else.
What's going on?
So for those people who have been rocking with us since season 1, you will remember an episode that we did. It was actually the season finale for season 1, Trial by Jury. You know, the episode where I talked about the time that I spent as being a juror. In that case, there was a 16-year-old boy who was accused of murder with 2 other adults, and I was a juror on his jury. So I was driving to work. This was months ago, and I saw the lawyer who represented him jogging in my neighborhood. So I'm like, man, I'm gonna run into this lawyer again. So when we were released, because it was a hung jury, for those of you who listened to it, for you, those of you who didn't, check out the whole episode. Again, it's the season finale episode.
The whole season. Check out the whole season.
Absolutely. Do that too. So 2 weeks ago, I'm at the grocery store, and I'm in the produce aisle, right? Because I'm a vegan, getting me some fruits and veggies. And I saw the lawyer in the grocery store. So I zoom around through the aisle so I can catch him around the other side, right? So I'm zooming around, I'm weaving through traffic. I come around and I say, excuse me, sir, excuse me. He didn't hear me, so I'm coming 100 miles per hour. So he abruptly stops and turns around, and we almost crashed into one another. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry. He said, no, that's my fault. I said, I don't know if you remember me, but I was a juror on the jury with, and I couldn't remember the young man's name to save my life at the time. And I, described the trial. A little boy was on trial for murder. There was 2 adults, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, yeah. So he gave me the guy's name, whatever. He said, yeah, they retried it in November. I was like, yeah, I remember them saying that when they released it, that it would be retried, and the tentative date was sometime in November. So I asked him, what was the outcome of that trial? And he told me that he was found guilty of murder.
Wow.
And not only was he found guilty of murder, he was sentenced to 53 years. So he had to serve 26 years. And I was just like, man, my heart just dropped. And as I said in the episode, there was a woman that was in the jury. As you know, you're not supposed to talk about, anything outside of the jury room. So she saw me outside. She caught up with me after we were released, and she was like, I wanted to come up to you at some point or try to find a way to talk to you, because I wanted to see if you could persuade, or if you would be interested in trying to persuade the people to find him not guilty of manslaughter, because then, we would select, how his sentence, and then we can give him a lighter sentence. because again, the boy was 16 years old. Inner city neighborhood. For those of you who grew up into that kind of environment, you kind of understand how that goes. But at 16, he had been in jail for like 2 years before the trial happened. So I think he had just turned 18 by the time that the trial was taking place. And I'm like, man, he's going to spend a minimum of 26 years behind bars. Like, that's crazy. He's going to have more time behind bars than out as a free man by the time he's able to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it bothered me so much is, I mean, it just bothered. It was just a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. Obviously, you could see racism all over, for the jurors who were like, no, he did it, from the very beginning. They were not from, a background like his. And they claim that a jury is supposed to be a jury of your peers. But if you actually Google the definition of the word peers, you will realize that 9 times out of 10, especially if you're a minority, that's not going to be the case. So when I had divined on it, because I was just like, yo, I don't know what to do. So I asked E5, and E5 said that, he was guilty, but I should vote not guilty because he had the ability to have a great influence on people to do good things. Like, he had a lot of good things ahead of him, or the potential, I should say, for that. So that's the way, I went. Even though I was feeling the not guilty part anyway, but when EFI confirmed it. But it did say he was guilty, yet we should find him not guilty, or I should vote not guilty. So yeah, man, to get that conclusion, man, it was heavy on me for a minute. But I wanted to tell you, for some time, but I was like, I'm just gonna wait and I'm gonna tell him with the rest of the family.
That's a long time. When you told me he was 16, I was thinking that he was 16 now, getting his sentence at 16. But he was tried as an adult, right? Even when
Right.
you were a jury, he was tried as an adult. And I could just see him going to what they call in TDC the burning hell, which is in Brazoria County down there by you, the Clemens unit. It's a gladiator form. They call it the burning hell. And yeah, man, people don't want to go over there, but he's young. He has a lot of time to do. In all likelihood, he probably will not come home after he's done his 26 years just because he has so much time left. He would have so much time left on parole. I hate that for him, but you say he was guilty. Did you feel from the evidence that was presented to you that he was guilty, or that he was guilty of something?
So I believe that he was a part of it. Now, the evidence that they presented, if you are really a educated and informed individual without bias, and I kind of hang my hat on that. Like, I feel like I'm one of those people who can really sit in the middle without bias. If you just listen to the facts, you had to vote not guilty. I mean, they had no DNA evidence for him. They had DNA evidence for the girl who was his co-defendant, but that was, testifying against him and the other co-defendant. But she couldn't remember anything. All she could, when I say anything, all she literally could remember is that he was there, and the other guy who was her boyfriend at the time was there. And that the boy who wasn't her boyfriend was the one who pulled the trigger. She couldn't remember if there was more than one shot. She couldn't remember what car she rode in, leaving the house. She couldn't remember who was driving the car that she rode in, because they took her car there and then they stole his truck. So she couldn't remember, any of those details. Like, literally, like, I don't remember. like 95% of what she said was I don't remember.
Memory is a funny thing though, especially after a traumatic experience. Memory is a funny thing. But I think if we are truly innocent until proven guilty as the defendant, we shouldn't have to say anything. It's the burden of proof is on the state.
Right.
You have to prove that I committed this crime. That you have to prove that I was there, that I had motive, that I had a means of doing it, and that I actually did it. The burden of proof is supposed to be on the state. It should be on the state, and regardless if he's guilty or not, the state has to prove it. And if they can't prove it, then it should be an acquittal.
And that's the thing. He doesn't have to prove that he's innocent. The state has to prove that he's guilty. He didn't even testify. Now, here's a tidbit of information. What the lawyer did share with me is that when we were leaving, the lawyers for the state, the prosecution, stopped us in the hallway and they asked us, what were the issues? Why did we find him not guilty? I refused to participate in that. I just was listening, and the other people were very eager to basically help the state's case. The only thing that I said was the police officer that you put on the stand, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say some of the things that he said. He was misled to believe that was the case, but I believe he was flat out lying. Like there was some text messages, right, using slang. And the detective testified to what those terms meant. And I'm like, it could mean that, but 9 times out of 10, when you use some of these terms, it means a lot other things than that. It's just that the detective is on the side of the stage trying to paint a picture. So that was my only thing. I was like, yeah, the detective that you had, I feel like was intentionally being misleading with some of the testimony. But yeah, I mean, the other people, they was going in. So for the new trial, the state, who, in my opinion, got embarrassed the first go around. Like it wasn't even close. Like they were outclassed by the defense. On the next go around, they actually got with the FBI to then get FBI resources to then be able to track his phone and to say that based upon tracking his phone, he was in the area at the time the guy was killed. And then they were able to get into his cell phone and find pictures. I can't remember if the pictures were necessarily inside the house or just with a lot of the things that they took from the house. Like he was posing with those things. So he said, yeah, they came back with a whole lot more information. And he said on appeal, or hung jury, things like that, that usually the state is able to make their case better. So he kind of said that to the defendant. He was telling his client, he said, yeah, I don't know that this is going to get any better than this hung jury.
Yeah.
So he said they came back with a lot better case the next go around.
Wow. Yeah, man. You held on to that for a while,
Yeah, man.
I had been wondering whatever happened to him, and whatever happened with the new case. For some reason, I felt like it was further off.
Yeah, it came back in November, but see, this was during the E5 festival in June.
Right.
And no, July. It was in July. So yeah, from July to November before the new trial. So, and he sat in prison for a long time, or in jail for a long time because of COVID.
Right.
So yeah, man. So you ready to start this new episode?
Yeah, man. I'm ready to get into this new episode, man. We got a very, very special guest. I know we say that every time, but this is a very special guest to us personally.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get it started. Hey, family. Welcome to the show. Our Ibeji, Dr. Baz Moreno.
Veggie, what's going on, man?
Hey, not much. How about you guys? What's up with you?
Man, you know, we just working. We just working, man. Podcasting and priesting, man. That's what I was telling Fafore, man. That's what we doing now. Podcasting and priesting. We pushing people.
Yeah, yeah.
I like it. I like it. I like that. Podcasting and priesting. Yeah.
Priesting.
Yeah, we need to
Yeah, I
get
like that, man.
like that.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
And hey, it's a privilege. It's an honor to be with the twin ambassadors of OIDSI.
We appreciate you for coming on, man. We know you taking time out of your busy schedule, man.
Absolutely.
Hey, man.
Those who
Yeah.
Veggie means somebody that you were initiated with. So Baz was one of the 8 other people that our Oseun and myself was initiated with.
Yeah,
That's
man.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that was a beautiful experience, man, for all 10 of us to be in one spot and be born through the same womb, man. So we really are brothers, man. We glad to have our brother podcast.
Definitely. I agree, man. Well, I'm glad that you're all able to do what you're doing. You all have motivated me and gotten me to actually come out, and do more, be more active, be more visible, So what you all are doing is definitely a good thing.
We appreciate that coming from you, big bro. So for the family who doesn't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, as seen there, I'm Dr. Baz Moreno. I have a doctorate in natural medicine. I received my doctorate in 2000. So that gives you an idea of just how long I've been around. It may give you an idea of just how old I really am. I live in Mexico. I've studied in Mexico City for 10 years. I now, I actually got my cedula or my professional degree last year. So after years of constant studies and putting together or piecing together my medical career, I was able to get a license so that I'm legal here. That'll give you a little bit about me. What else would you like to know?
So now you're being a little modest because I've been to your place down in Mexico City. You got a whole bunch of pieces of paper on the wall. So give the family some little insight on all the different things or some of the major things that you have been educated in.
Okay, no problem. Well, of course, I started in the United States and I received my professional degree and my doctorate in the United States. I don't want to mention the school. I don't mention the school simply because I don't feel that they were supportive of me as a person that I am and due to my background. But in Mexico, I was able to continue my studies and I went to about 3 different schools here. And each year I take classes. Those classes consist of things such as Botox or botulinum toxin, also stem cell therapy or regenerative medicine. I've also studied enzymatic medicine. I've dealt with, I've had so many classes I can't even think right now. But mostly everything that I do with has to deal with regenerative medicine or stem cell therapy. Okay, so that's where I'm at. So here, because I came to Mexico with a PhD, it enabled me to easily cross over into the medical field here. Made it very easy for me without any questions. And pool, of course, there was some pool involved, so I've had classes every year. Every year I receive a class. So those certificates that you saw, they're in my office. The majority of them are in my office in Atizapan. Atizapan is north of Mexico City. It's about 30 kilometers north of Mexico City. So that's where my main office is. I live in Querétaro City, Querétaro. So that's where I am now. Before, I had an office about 70 minutes from here, which is San Miguel de Allende, which is in the state of Guanajuato. So I've been around Mexico. I've gotten around quite a bit, and I'm glad that I'm here because this country gave me the opportunity to basically build onto my community, learn more, it gave me access to things that I would not have been able to do in the United States, because in the United States, I would have had to be a medical doctor. And with my past, that was not possible.
Mm. Mm. So let me ask you this. What made you want to be a doctor? Is that something that you always wanted to be, or that something that you came into life?
I think that it's something that I always wanted, simply because I recall in high school during my Kung Fu classes, when I was participating and learning the particular martial art of Wushu Kung Fu, anytime somebody was hurt, I wanted to help them. I wanted to make sure that they were, whether I hurt them or somebody else hurt them, I was the one that was always taking care of them. So when I enlisted in the military, in the Army, I remember there was a vacancy for a medical class, a combat medical class. So they ended up delegating me for that class. So I went and I learned how to do IVs of all things. I had never done any type of injections or of any sort. So here I was learning how to do injections, how to do intravenous injections as well, or infiltrations. And then later, before I got out of the military, I was asked if I would like to have a trade to take with me, because I was in communications. So I ended up going to emergency medical technician class. It took about 6 months, which was wonderful for me. So after that, I went home to California and I attended school in Canoga Park, and thereafter Daniel Freeman, which would take me into USC, which I ended up leaving. So I left med school and I went on an Islamic mission. I remember going on an Islamic mission, and that changed everything. And while I was on that mission, when I saw the poverty in the South and I saw how people were struggling to basically heal themselves or find money to actually take care of themselves or to be able to afford medical care, I decided upon holistic healing. That's what I thought I wanted. Then I remember I was in Florida and going into holistic healing as well. She told me how easy it would be for me. And that's the route that I took. I ended up going into holistic healing. I hated it. I didn't think that it was right. I didn't really think that it was sophisticated. There was nothing sexy about it, but still, I took my classes and I got my initial degree for that. But I still had questions about things and I wasn't so certain. But I remember one of the counselors telling me, hey, no one has to know where you went to school or how you learned. You just have to have the confidence to do what you're doing. And after that, I remember opening a clinic in Atlanta. It was in Decatur. My first clinic was in Decatur, which is a part of Atlanta, Metro Atlanta. And I remember that we had a guy from the same school that I attended. He ended up working for my company, and he had a PhD. And I needed him to do something for me in terms of paperwork, and he wouldn't do it. So because of that, I said, okay, I'm going to get my own PhD, which was easy. Yeah.
Wow.
That's hilarious. Easy PhD. Hey, sorry.
Yeah, I think it was easy. I think it was easy because, hey, we're going to get to this, and it's something that we don't have to avoid. So I will say that based on what I consider to be an abduction, during that time, I had more time, and because I was already a reader, an avid reader, as people say, it was easy for me to focus on what I wanted after, because I knew that there was nothing that the penal system could offer me. So I definitely had to focus on doing everything I possibly could to be ready for after, the after period, so yeah.
Ashe. So, Baz, as we do every guest that comes on, we like to get an understanding about your spiritual journey and how you got to E5. So can you walk us through that spiritual journey?
Well, with me, I remember after my abduction, I had some issues. So I contacted a particular professor in Atlanta, and he told me about a sister that was in contact with Baba Shangadari and Baba Femi. When I called the number, I ended up talking with Baba Femi. And of course, from there, Baba Femi started teaching things, lead me. And of course, I never really thought about what I would know as Ifa. I just thought, okay, he can help me. He knows how to do some things. Plus, I had come from that field where people like me went to people like him to get guidance, to get protection and things of that nature. So he was very, very helpful for me. At one time, I thought, hey, man, I think I'm suicidal. He says, no, you're not suicidal, you know. So he told me what I need to do, and I had me doing various things. He had me recognizing my ancestors, had me practicing more humility. So for me, it was necessary. And then I'll take you up to another point where I really got to see the magic of what he was capable of doing in terms of Ifa, or how Ifa was able to utilize him. Because later, I remember in 2016, I'm in Mexico City, and something happens in my office and a patient dies. And because I'm American, of course, they want me. I have the money, I have the resources. They thought nothing about my assistant. They didn't believe that, you know, she was responsible. They thought that, hey, it's on him. He's the doctor. Even though it took the ambulance 2 hours and 18 minutes to arrive, I was only able to do CPR for about 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, it felt like my arms were just too big, too heavy. I couldn't do anything. I never want to do CPR again because I just remember how ineffective it was. I had success with CPR before, but on this particular day, it failed me. And I remember breaking one of the ribs of this particular patient. But at any rate, about 2 hours and 30 minutes after, I remember the police coming. The first group of police told me that I had done nothing wrong, everything was okay, I wouldn't be arrested. And then I remember another set coming, older, and they're checking me out. They're checking me out the way a woman would, you know, they're checking me out. So now I realize they're about to arrest me. So I call my attorney and say, hey, I'm about to be arrested. He says, no, you won't be arrested. Don't worry about that. And then I sense it. I know I'm about to be arrested. So I call Baba Femi. I call Baba Femi and I'm telling Baba Femi, hey, no, I called Baba Femi. He didn't answer. So a few minutes later, maybe a minute later or less, he calls me. He says, hey, something's wrong. You normally don't call me. And the funny thing is, even if I had called him, he normally didn't answer. But he calls me back and I tell him, hey, I'm about to be arrested. He says, tell me what's going on. I said, a patient died in my office. He said, patient died? He said, run me through it. I take him through the story, tell him what happened. He says to me, say, I didn't do anything wrong. I said, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. He says, no, say, I didn't do anything wrong. So I say, I didn't do anything wrong. He said, okay, I'm about to go to work. So go to work. Of course, you know what he meant by go to work. So they arrest me immediately after I get off the phone. And because I had been abducted before, I take off my belt, take off my phone, hand it to my wife. My assistant that got me in this position, she's crying. My father-in-law, he's talking to me. Everybody's letting me know everything's going to be okay. So they transport me to what is called the Ministerio Público, which is like a prosecutor's office. And then there they have cells. So I have this person with me and I'm asking him, why are you here? And he says, your wife hired me. So he's sitting outside my cell and I'm in a cell by myself. And so I said, hey, he starts relaying messages between me and my wife. And he lets me know that your wife spoke to Baba Femi, and he says everything's going to be okay. So while I'm there, several times they walk me back and forth to see the doctor, and the doctor wants to ascertain that nothing has happened to me, no one has touched me, anything of that sort or nature. And so anyway, I ended up leaving that night. It's probably about a 12-hour process. And after that, I contacted Baba Femi to let him know, hey, what's going on? He said, okay, tell me what I need to do. I said, well, this is what they want to do, da 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 da. because I'm going to trial, and some people had told me, say that you don't speak Spanish, but honestly, that is the first day that I started to speak Spanish. I mean, before I was just like, I would say little things in Spanish, but that day, what made me start speaking Spanish is when the Ministerio Público, when he asked me, he said, would you like to call the embassy? And I said, yeah. I said, but I think my wife's already called the embassy. He said, that doesn't count. He said, would you like to call the embassy? I said, well, why are you asking me? He said, because if you call the embassy, you can't receive flexibilities. So I say, flexibilities? He said, yeah, that's something like white man's privilege. I'll take that. That's what I told. I automatically knew, hey, I wanted the white man privilege. I wanted it, so he ended up telling me, okay, good. So that entailed a bribe,
Right.
Yeah, and that's what it meant, So my wife, my attorney told me she's outside, she's smoking. My wife doesn't smoke. She's smoking. So she's smoking. They're trying to move around my money, their money, because, hey, we got to make this thing happen. So at any rate, Baba Femi, when he asked me, what is it that I would like done? He positioned me really to write my future,
Right.
So here I was having to tell him. He couldn't tell me, what is it that you want, and I had to know. So this is a lesson for anybody that's talking about or thinking about manifesting something, because Ifa allowed me to be able to manifest the possibility of me walking out of a situation that I was facing homicide.
Wow.
I was facing homicide for something that I didn't even cause, but because it was in my office and I was there, they put it all on me and almost made me believe that I did it. But had I not broken the person's ribs, and the first autopsy that came back didn't have that the ribs were broken. So I challenged it and said, you all didn't do a proper autopsy. How do you know? Because you didn't mention the ribs being broken. So they had to go back and do the autopsy. When they went back and do the autopsy, the poisons that they claimed killed this particular person were not present. So with the lapse of time, it was on my side. And then it made it easier for Baba Femi to understand what it is that I wanted, because the people, they had like 15 lawyers. 15 lawyers. And all I had was, we did have, I should say, because we had the finances, and because I had been abducted before, it gave me the courage to fight this particular time. Right. In addition to that, Baba Femi was doing his thing, and everything that I asked to be done, it manifested. So when I speak about my particular journey, it's taken a long time for me to get here. And even after being initiated, it has taken even longer for me to accept the fact that, hey, what I have is real. What I have is doable. So now here I am, before the end of 2022, finally saying to my, accepting the fact that I had been initiated, and that I did want this journey, and that I did want to be able to improve my craft, improve my persona, improve my journey, so that's where I am now.
Thank God for Ifa and white man's privilege.
Sam doesn't want to attest to that, yeah. Yeah.
No, I needed some of that. I needed some of that here in the state of Texas, man. I needed some of that too.
Yeah.
Some of that white man's privilege in TDCJ. I needed some of that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've heard and read much about Method Moreno. Tell us a little bit about that and what you actually do in your practice.
Method Moreno. Method Moreno came about simply because when I first got here, as I said before, I really wasn't speaking Spanish. Another thing is that classism was so heavy for me here that I was like, man, how do I combat the classism? Racism is really nothing for me, having grown up in the United States. So to go to another country and deal with racism was nothing. But dealing with classism allowed me to see that I had to set myself apart. I had to show these people that I know what I know. So Mr. Moreno consisted of me analyzing different systems, different modalities, and saying, hey, there's a way that somebody can actually shadow me and they can learn what it is that I do, what it is that I know. Maybe not to the same level or extent, but they can learn it to the point that they can actually help others. So Mr. Moreno is a combination of the classes that I received from my Nigerian professors, my Ghanaian professors, Cuban, Mexican, and American. Oh yeah, and Spaniard. So when I look at the combination of the classes that I've taken, the lessons that I've learned, and even the late Dr. Africa gave me some information during my abduction. He would write me every month. He would write me once a month. And I still remember him writing me when I was getting ready to do my dissertation. And he told me, he says, don't give them anything special. He said, write about something simple like sugar. So I did my dissertation on the dangers of sugar. And then after I graduated, I remember him telling me, he wrote me another letter. He said, congratulations, you have earned yourself a mountain of garbage. So, and that there, but he wrote me back about 3 months later. He told me, he said, the good thing about it, he said, now that you have that degree, it proves that your ancestors can teach you what you really need to know. So again, when we go back to my spiritual journey and we talk about Mr. Moreno, basically it's as if my ancestors were preparing me, to go through African medicine as we know it. And that's where I am. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. So from your perspective, what does health look like? What does a healthy person, or when they have been healed, what does that look like to you?
Oh man, if a person has been healed, what does that look like? That looks like a person that is really practicing sanity, a person that has accepted the fact that they were erring in, be it the spiritual, physical, or emotional realm. They were making errors and violating their body, their mind, their spirit in a way that they should not have. So when we think of health, we're thinking that, hey, this person has balance, because people can be sick and show no symptoms. We even know now after COVID that we have such words as asymptomatic. That word was not popular before. It's popular now. So to think of health, we have to see and realize that not everybody will show signs of dis-ease, even if they are sick. Does that help? Do you understand? Or do I need to say more?
No, and that you have mentioned sickness, can you define for us what that means? What does it mean to be sick or misaligned or unbalanced?
Man, sick. Okay. Once a person has dealt with some form of trauma or a form of toxicity or allowed their thoughts to precede them, that person can experience some form of dis-ease or sickness. So a sickness doesn't come from just because somebody is nasty as hell and cooks something for you, you eat it, and all of a sudden you're vomiting. Nah, I mean, when we start talking about sickness, we're talking about the fact that we can experience a trauma that is affected mentally or even physically or emotionally, or that person has encountered some type of toxin that their body cannot repel, or that person has thought themselves into this particular energy or field of energy. So that's how we come about with sickness.
So we know that you're well versed in what health looks like, what sickness is. You have your PhD. You are well studied. You've been studied for 20, 30 plus years. I don't want to reveal your age, I don't want to reveal your age. But you and I have talked specifically about the compounds that you use, the apitoxina. Is that how you pronounce it?
Okay. Apitoxin in English, apitoxina in Spanish. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, apitoxina and the SC16, the stem cells. Can you tell us
Right.
more about those compounds?
Yeah, sure. Okay, the apitoxin, the apitoxin or apitoxina, it comes from the bee venom. It had to be made during my trial because I had to prove that that bee venom did not cause the death of this particular person. So I was able to get that formula. I can't even tell you how I got it. And I made the bee venom just to prove, and I had to inject myself to show that it would not kill. Okay, so that's part of the reasons that we're having this conversation. But so the apitoxin comes from bee venom. The beehive has other properties that are medicinal as well, which we all know about the bee venom, or we know about honey, or we know about royal jelly, or propolis, or we know about the pollen as well. So these are things that come from the hive, but the apitoxin, because the injection is so magical, and because we can pierce that blockage of energy in the body, the bee venom works better when introduced with a needle. So the apitoxin is one of my creations, but it was inspired by a particular person out of Argentina that was very popular, well known for apitoxin. So I decided, if he can do it, I can do it. I invited him to dinner, and he talked to me, and he told me that I could not do it. He said, there's no way you can do it. You don't have the equipment. He basically was telling me I didn't have the intelligence. That bothered me. I remember pushing my plate forward, to let my wife know I don't want anything else to eat. I watched him eat. I listened to him, and here I am thinking to myself, I've cooked crack in a microwave.
Right. Right.
So I knew I could make the bee venom. Now, in terms of the SC16, which are stem cells, they're overpriced. And because of that, it angered me. And because I knew that my patients need to be on a protocol, I decided that I would be able to take the stem cells and make it into an injectable. So with stem cells, they normally choose a woman that is between the age of 18 and 23, first-time pregnancy, disease-free, and then they take her placenta. From there, they sterilize, freeze dry, and then they're able to, we can have what is called trossos, or pieces that we can use for the stem cell implant surgery. Or now we have it where we can pulverize that particular piece and we can inject it, but it's a thick solution, so we have to make it, we have to use a larger gauge needle to do so. In all honesty, the pieces are better because they release more slowly, and then it's easier to use the injections, the stem cell injections, in conjunction with the pieces that have been implanted in the body. That works better. But in addition to that, I have to add that diet is important. And this is something I've learned with trial and error, because I've committed lots of errors thinking that because stem cells are so dynamic, I just figured that it could just regenerate, revigorate, rejuvenate anything, rebuild, reboot. But that's not the case, because once we eat certain things, one of them, carbohydrates being another, we basically interfere with the performance of the stem cells. So the stem cells are something that I'm very versed in. I understand them very well. I know that they do work. I know that they're very miraculous, very wonderful, but they are not a cure-all.
And you mentioned the death that took place in your office, the death that you were accused of committing yourself. So I'm sure that death, or seeing death, is an occupational hazard. How has Ifa changed the way that you view death?
Before coming to Mexico, I didn't think it was an occupational hazard, simply because it's likely that in America, I didn't attract those type people. But here, because I am a Black man, and because some people do recognize my ethnicity, it's assumed that I know things that an EFI practitioner should know. So when we talk about death, the thing that I didn't understand then, and I probably just learned a couple months ago, is that with death comes, good things, new beginnings. So now my take on death is so different, because last year was difficult, very difficult for me. So EFI has helped me to understand that I do not need to recognize death as a stoppage or an ending, but more so as a renewal or a beginning. But in addition to that, it allows me now to see, what is it that I overlooked? What is it that I missed? What is it that I didn't understand when I asked if I should even consider this case? So my take now is different. I'm not blaming myself now for things that have happened in the past. I am recognizing how to utilize the lessons from the past, but I'm not blaming myself and saying I could have done more, because I know now that I was utilized, by this particular person. I was just one of their players, and they used me, so I have to accept that. If I can't accept it, of course, I can make myself weaker, vulnerable, suicidal. So I don't do that anymore. I remember one case where Dr. Nancy, I'll think of her name in a minute. I don't know why I just said her. I said her first name, but she's very popular. She's an author. She's very controversial. She spoke about AIDS, and oh man, I can't even think of her name at the moment. But I remember one time she talked to me about how to be a doctor. She told me I hadn't been trained properly on how to be a doctor and how to take notes and keep notes. Because once somebody gets sued, I've been sued now, so, and I'm still recovering. But the thing is, once you get sued, you'll find that you have an alliance of doctors that you can use and that you can share your notes with, and that can cover for you in certain things. That's why it's so hard to sue doctors a lot of times. They're sort of like police officers, I think. They know how to test a lie, so it's a bad thing. Yeah. But I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know anything about that. And not only that, that brings us back to Method Moreno and why I created it, because I was here by myself. I'm all alone. So I didn't come here with a group of immigrants. I migrated by myself, due to love, and I ended up getting a divorce. So we see that didn't work out, so yeah, that's how that works, man.
Right.
You can laugh, Jimmy. It's cool. I'm rebounding. I'm good, man.
I know
I'm not a passport bro. That's another thing. I've been here since 2012, the beginning of 2012. So, and the funny thing about that, before I came, Baba introduced me to a group in Atlanta and told me, hey, he's going to Mexico. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. I had no idea of what I was walking into. I had no idea that the doors that would open for me would open, and that I would start to learn the things that I learned about medicine. And then I remember him telling me, he said, I'll see you in Mexico. He said, I'm going to come down. I'm going to be coming down. And I was like, I didn't believe him. I was like, man, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But one day he calls me. He says, hey, man, I'm in Mexico. I said, okay, all right. So every time that he comes, I make sure that I try to see him, But yeah, that's how it was. I still remember him talking to me. And then eventually one trip he introduced me to Baba Dietary. And I'm like, okay, so we talked. We had some things in common. And I still remember those two just constantly telling me, hey, man, you're ready. And I was like, but my wife, because I was married to a woman that was Christian and did not agree with any of that, she wouldn't go for it, you know.
Yeah.
So I said, if I ever get to the point where I will do it, I will explain to the woman in my life that this is what I'm about and this is what I want and why I needed to do it. And introducing it as African medicine makes it so much easier for me.
I
Right.
sure. So Ephi the ancestors just got her up out the way, so you can,
Yeah.
add to
Well,
your
they
list.
used her. They used her because she got me to Mexico.
I sure.
And then I have a daughter, of course, so my daughter keeps me in Mexico, you know.
I
Right.
sure. I sure.
And then I have a new love interest, as you all both know, you know, so that makes it easier for me to stay, you know. So
Right.
yeah, it works
Right.
out. So EPI has been, you know, wonderful for me.
I
Yeah.
sure. I sure. There was a point, like, before, say, 2020, that holistic medicine or alternative medicine or whatever, people want to call it or however people want to identify it, was making a good run. Like the trajectory, it was becoming more and more popular. And then COVID hit. And with the COVID pandemic, as they call it, seems like Western medicine came back in with the vaccines. What do you think about COVID, and how do you view the response to it globally?
So first of all, holistic medicine, as I said, I never wanted to be identified as a holistic practitioner because I didn't sense or see that I had the ability to actually help somebody to heal, you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Even though I had the physical part down, I didn't realize that I wasn't having the success that I would like to have had because I didn't understand the other aspects of healing.
Mm.
I didn't know they existed. I just thought, hey, it's like somebody's bleeding, you know, stop the bleeding, clean it, you know, close it up. That's all I thought about. You know, I didn't think about how the person attracted. Like in African medicine, there really is no accident. If you're cutting the grass, a stone flies and it ricochets off something and cuts your arm, you need to check it out because it's more than likely you have a problem in your lungs, or depending on where the cut is on your arm. And when you were in the womb, you were somewhat like this. So it's like it's going to give you an indication of what's going on in your body. So there really is no accident. It's more like it's foretelling, you know. So
Right.
that's another reason that I have an issue with trauma, because I don't see trauma as a bad thing. I see trauma as a motivator.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what we go through in that moment is very bad. If you survive it, yeah, it can be very bad, you know. But sometimes it can be something that really motivates you, catapults you to a whole different level, to a different position, you know. So when we talk about COVID, I don't recall there being a run for with holistic medicine. I've always seen it as, if you don't want to take the medicine, you don't want to do the surgery, you don't want radiation, you can consider holistic medicine. And then you got a person before you that's going through a book, looking through stuff, and deciding, you know, what to do. But it's no different than doctors, because a lot of times they have iPads and they're Googling stuff as well, which is not good. You know, it's not good at all, because it's not good for me, it's not good to me, and it's not good for the patient, because every patient is different. Two patients can have cancer and both require a different form of healing. Both require a different method or different approach to healing the same type of cancer. You know, so because the cancer can mutate at a different rate depending on what that person has eaten, what that person has taken, what that person is doing with their life, how that person thinks. You know, so again, getting back to COVID for me wasn't a real issue, because I used chlorine dioxide and I was introducing it intravenously, and that gave me my advantage. So whenever I heard stories about bleach, I laughed, because I knew that chlorine dioxide was not bleach, you know. And because I was introducing it intravenously, that helped out. In one of my courses that I'll be releasing very soon, I show how to actually how to reverse that injection. You know, I show how to do that. Because it's easy to do. It's easy to do. I don't know if you all are familiar with people showing how they were that area with magnets. They were taking spoons and different things and sticking on people's arms. That is not necessary to do, because if the person knows what an injection is, all we have to do is make an incision there, remove the graphene that's there and the other poisons, because it's going to be likely thimerosal, or it's going to be aluminum or formaldehyde. And then all we have to do is just take and remove that, then cleanse that area with more chlorine dioxide. Afterwards, easily we can infiltrate with more chlorine dioxide to cleanse the blood. So here in Mexico, we're dealing with people that are actually having more difficulties now, but a lot of these people, we have to keep in mind that they had issues prior to the vaccine. So that says that in all likelihood, the vaccine did not cause the damage. It only exacerbated it. If there is a difference. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. In our various conversations, whenever the conversation of healing comes up, you always make sure to correct me and say that you don't heal people. You've never healed anyone. You just assist people and help them to heal themselves.
Yeah, I'm being too modest, man.
See,
yeah, but that's true.
So too. I think you're being too modest too. So, can you give us some pointers? Like, what can we do to help us heal? Like, what are some things that we can do
to help us heal? Okay, we can reduce our contact with toxins, as we say, germs, bacteria, viruses are necessary for life. We need those. But in terms of uncleanliness, as Iwos, we know that cleanliness is important.
Sure.
Okay. So we already know the avoidance of toxins would be one thing that we could do. Another thing that we could do would actually be to change how we think. Someone could tell you that you have herpes or cancer, and all the connotations that come along with what you know about those based on the movies you've seen, the conversations you've had at the dinner table, or the conversations you've had under the deal with whatever it is that you've been diagnosed with or led to believe that you have. So we had to change the thoughts as well. And of course, you just happen to be walking down the road and somebody slaps us. I think we would have to change how we view life in order to avoid what it is that we're attracting that we consider to be negative. So in addition to that, of course, we can eat cleaner foods. How do we eat cleaner foods? We become more knowledgeable about what it is that we're eating, and not assume that just because something is packaged, just because something is sold in the store, that it is safe, or just because the government says that this is okay, that it really is okay, because that's not the case. So some of this will take experience, because as we combine foods, we do more damage to ourselves. So once you eat something, regardless of how it tastes, if you should pass gas, should you burp, should you belch, should you itch, should you become uncomfortable, restless, should you start sweating or have a headache, you're receiving an indication that tells you should be listening to your body. Of course, you drank something, you ate something, or inhaled something, or you came in contact with some liquid. So all of these are things that let us know that these are things that in the future we would have to avoid if we experience any of the things that I mentioned.
You talk about regenerative medicine when you talked about the stem cells and things like that. Tell us what regenerative medicine is, and how do you use that in your practice?
Okay. Well, this year I'll change the name. I'll start using renovative cellular therapy. I'll start using that name instead of stem cell, because I think the market is becoming, saturated with stem cell therapy. And a lot of times these people are inflating the prices and giving us fewer stem cells than what we really need. Now, having said that, I'll say this. Sometimes we're given too many stem cells and the body just can't deal with it based on cell intelligence. The body can only do so much, can only take so much in terms of infiltration. So when you start talking about introducing a stem cell or germ to somebody, the body has the ability to reject it. When I talk about regenerative medicine or stem cells, I'm talking about introducing a stem cell, be it from another being, preferably being, but it does not have to be another human being. It can be an animal. That's why we have OPO therapeutics, because a lot of times we use glands from animals, be it the liver or the kidneys, and we can take pieces of that and we can utilize them in humans as well. But the purpose is to actually assist those cells that exist to actually duplicate and start to rebuild, because wherever they are, they have the intelligence in order to create cells for that particular organ. So if it's in the liver or it's in the lungs or it's in the heart, it can actually make more cells that are doing as they're supposed to do in order to rebuild that particular organ. But again, how this is interfered with a lot of times is based on the things that we are eating and drinking, inhaling, and coming into contact with, to include negative thoughts.
To include negative thoughts. And I should have said this earlier, but I just want to throw out there to the people that I have taken both the bee venom, the oxytocin, and the stem cells. I actually go to a holistic doctor here in the Houston area. And what he does is he'll take some herbs, because he doesn't prescribe pharmaceuticals. So everything is about herbs. So he'll take different herbs, or even if there's an herbal regimen that you're using, and he'll take it to see if it energetically works with your body. And is it something that your body receives as beneficial or not? So I took the bee venom and the oxytocin, and my body was like, yes, we are all good with that. So I've taken like 2 vials of the oxytocin and one of the stem cells. So, I mean,
Okay.
It did me well. So I just wanted to go ahead. I wanted to give that plug that I've actually, utilized it, and it was all good. I ain't thought buzz.
I appreciate that, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
Right. So are you still gonna do your class about teaching people how to do the injections?
Yes, I will be releasing the class on how to do the injections. I have a bio regenerative injection course. I have a chlorine dioxide course that's fantastic. You love it. And I have an apitoxin or apitherapy class that teaches the aspects of the beehive and how to use the medicines and knowing where to sting if you want to sting with the bee. But later in the injection course, I show how to actually sting with the apitoxin. Yeah, so I will be releasing those classes. I do have an academy, I just haven't released it. But now that I'm starting to learn how to make videos, how to edit, things of that nature, I can do it. I need some help, man. I need some help. So you all know somebody that wants to work with me, let me know, man. Let's find some help for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got some
people that know about graphics, people that know how to make announcements, people that know how to make videos, somebody that would be willing to work on a commission, based on the sales that we make. Yeah, because I'm in Mexico, not complaining. not complaining.
Sure.
And not only that, when we start talking about stem cells, like for example, in the United States, stem cells could range, an injection, 1 cc could range anywhere from, if you're lucky, $10,000 up to $100,000.
Wow.
But yet that same person could fly to Mexico to see me, and they could get several cc's of stem cells and an implant for less than $10,000.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So there are advantages to Mexico and medical tourism, you know. And in addition to that, we have more experience here in Mexico than the United States. Yeah. Because the United States, for the longest, the last 3 or 4 presidents, well, up until Obama basically passed a law that made it okay for stem cell usage. But prior to that, the other presidents were like, hey, no to stem cells. You know, and of course, their approach seemed to be somewhat from a religious, viewpoint or perspective. But when we see that stem cells are the now and the future, I mean, we definitely want to be involved with stem cells, because when you see what they can do for, in terms of regenerating or rebuilding an organ or a tissue or a cell, hey man, it's something that you really want.
Right. We've talked throughout this season about healing. This entire season is dedicated to healing, and we wanted to have you on and talk to us about holistic health, holistic medicine. But how has your perspective on healing changed since becoming a priest of Ifa?
Oh man, how has it changed? I think that Ifa has enhanced me as a healer, because now I'm more serious about assisting that person in healing themselves. Because having the person's permission is one thing, but knowing before you touch that person whether or not you can be effective with them is entirely different. You know, so Ifa gives me that. It's a very humbling experience, because before I would not have asked anybody anything or any source for permission to do what it is that I thought that I could do so well. But having said that, of course, death is a reminder of my temporary visit.
I say,
So yeah, so now, so Ifa has changed that. Ifa has given me the courage. Ifa has made me more, as one of my friends likes to say, compassionate in terms of how I see people, how I see healing, and the fact that we're so interconnected, despite the fact that we may speak about racism, we may see a lot of injustices, but when it comes to healing, to know that I can take something from this person and use it with this person, or that I can utilize stem cells from a woman that you never have met, and I can help you to build or rebuild a part of your body that you couldn't afford to replace with a different organ. To me, that's fascinating.
Right.
So Ifa has actually shown me that there are possibilities, despite the fact that conventional medicine may say that something is incurable.
Right. We're trying to get people on the track of healing themselves, or coming to the knowledge that they may be imbalanced or misaligned, and that it doesn't have to be physically. It could be, like you said, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, and that these symptoms can rear their heads in our bodies. So if you could leave the people with one thing that could put them on the path to healing themselves, what would that be? What would that one thing be?
One thing. It would have to be that they live the cleanest, the purest, the simplest life possible. I mean, and I've already said that we have to be cognizant of the fact that we are attracting into our lives what it is that we're dealing with. Be it good or bad, we're attracting it. It's almost as if we've written this out. So they would have to actually change how they are seeing people and how they think that people see them in order for them to have that life that it is that they want. And with that being said, I think it will be a lot easier. But I can't stick to one thing because I have to add this. We have to stop using food as entertainment. No matter what kind of function there is, we think that we have to eat. We think that we have to eat at every function. We eat food off of each other. We eat food with each other. We eat food in places that we should not. I mean, so once we understand that we do not have to engage in comestibles, just because we're all together. Yeah, it would be nice if we could eat, especially if we're there for a long period of time. But the thing is, even when we do eat, we still need to choose the best foods, not the cheapest foods, but the best foods. And another thing, when it comes to expensive foods, I really don't think now with COVID having been introduced, the pandemic, most places now are leaving food out all day. So they buy the cheapest materials because they got to use it. They're not refrigerating it after every use. They're microwaving most dishes. They're pre-cooking and microwaving. I mean, so we're really paying for a lot of the expensive garbage, when we go out, and this is really what's bringing about the problems because we have these toxins trapped in our bodies. And now, as they putrefy, they start to poison our bodies. And this is how we come about with the diseases that we have.
I love that you said that. And I'm glad you said that because I say that food is the most abused drug by far. Because like you said, everything involves food. Hey, I'm running into you on the street. I haven't seen you in a while. Hey, let's go do lunch. Let's go dinner.
Yeah.
Let's grab a drink. Every day involves food. It's an abused drug. And the things that we are eating are terrible. So I'm glad you said that. That's a very good point. So now it pains me to say where I'm about to go next.
You gonna say something about Sam or what?
No.
Sam, that would be hard for him, Sam.
Uh-huh.
That would hurt both of you.
I ain't talking about it in this episode. No, but so we find ways. Some of us, when we come into a certain level of enlightenment, we talk about people who are in places in which we left, right?
Okay.
When we come into spirituality, we know that we are spiritual beings having a human experience and that we've gone lifetime to lifetime and we inhabited many, many, many bodies. And I think specifically in E5, because of that, it almost leads to like not the adequate amount of appreciation for the actual physical body in which we inhabit. Like, most E5 practitioners that I know, especially for people who are priests, I mean, we got all these altars around the house. We got all these different implements. The temple that we live in, the temple that we sleep in is adorned with all these beautiful things, but it's not the same with the temple that, that houses our spirit. Oseun and myself, we went to a Hindu temple a couple months ago now. And we were there for a long time. And while we were there, I was able to eat, at the Hindu temple. But we'll be at the Elay for a long time. I always have to bring my own food. The thing that I wish that we would do in E5 that's different from the other spiritual traditions that I'm familiar with, Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, is that there is a way of eating, a standard of eating. What those people consume is something that is widely practiced and widely accepted. And that I know there's in the Ifa corpus, it has to be the same thing. We can't have a tradition, Ifa, the wisdom of nature, yet we don't have a standard on what it is that we eat.
Mm.
What do you think about that? What do you think about us not really maintaining a standard of health in a tradition that calls itself or translates its name to the wisdom of nature?
First of all, I'm grateful for those people in Yoruba land simply because without them, the spiritual system that we know as Ifa would not exist as it does. And healers like myself would not be useful because everybody would have vacated what we know to be useful, to be functional for what we now see as conventional medicine. But when I look at the conditions of Yoruba land, I understand that a lot of people are eating what they can.
Right.
Because they don't have access to what you and I have access to.
Right.
So because of that, I can understand the confusion. I can understand people eating when they eat, how they eat. I don't agree with it. But having a system that we have with so much power, with so much magic, with so many wonders, what bothers me is that artificial intelligence and artists and the best orators can speak of Ifa and Orisha, and yet when we get a description of them, they look nothing like the majority of us that find ourselves being unhealthy, find ourselves being overweight, or because we can move and talk and sing and dance and pray, we think that we're okay. But as I said before, a lot of us have, problems, and yet, we do nothing about it because we haven't had any symptoms. We haven't been giving any signs. And a lot of us don't even know how to listen to our bodies. Would it be nice to have a way to eat? Yeah, it probably would. But depending on where I live on the globe may determine how it is that I am eating and to what it is that I'm eating. And because I accept Ifa as a spiritual system, I would never want it to be a religion for myself.
Right.
And if you tell me how to eat, you're basically giving me a religion. And for me to have to make the changes that I made with my diet after having two young Babalao tell me that I was sick and me not believing it, and for when I received my meals, even you all saw that they brought my meals with meat, and I was like, no, hey, I don't eat meat, but because you were special, you got the special meals, Yeah. So, but all the signs were given to me, and then when Chief came in and I was like, well, I can't eat meat, and she's like, you gotta miss your blessings, and I'm like, it didn't register well with me. But once I got back to Mexico, I replayed all of that. I replayed it all, from the meals that I was given, to me missing my blessings, to my Odu, all of that. And then finally seeing, mucus, drain from my body, seeing blood drain from my body, and knowing, oh man, I really am sick. I really am sick. Now that should have shook me to the point where I should have been studying. I should have been a willing participant. I should have been wanting to be, beyond the Omoawo, 2 years ago. But it took me all this time, man, for me to replay and understand what was happening in my life. So when I recognize Ifa as a spiritual system, and I know there are others that have more time, and they may have traveled. It does not matter to me, because who I am and my particular journey at this particular time, is for me. And like I said, I see it as it is. So I don't want to be harsh with those people that find themselves with such a wonderful system to do almost anything to change some of the situations other than those, that Rumala has decided that can't be changed, I mean, I'm like, man, just to know what you have in your hand, but yet not take care of the vessel that is allowing you to go from point A to point B and to, assist other people on their journeys as well. I think that's a bit reckless. So me, am I one for health after learning that I was sick? Yeah, I'm all for health. I was for it before, but now I'm definitely more for health, more for healing. And I'm even learning how to utilize compassion. Even though I hate the word compassion, I'm learning how to be more compassionate. That's something I'm learning as a healer. So yeah.
What is it about compassion that you hate? About the term?
The origin of the word itself, because when we look at the word compassion, we have the word come, meaning with, and passion means to suffer. So passion means to suffer. So you're asking me to suffer with you by me showing my compassion. I disagree with that as a healer. I disagree simply because I should have the knowledge to know that if I take on your case, if I decide to align myself with spirit to give you a message, man, I mean, that is a hell of a position, and because of that, I want to offer you the best. And if I can align myself properly to give you what it is that spirit is offering to you after, divination, I haven't been fair to you. I haven't been honest with you. If I can't give you what it is that I told you I could give you, when I decide to take you up under the knife, or whether it be you take one of my services or some of my injections, I haven't been fair with you, So whatever it is that I'm willing to do to someone else, more than likely, I've undergone the services to know what it feels like. So if you tell me something hurts, I know if you're lying to me or not, because I'm going to do everything I can. And this is where compassion comes in the sense that it's used today, even though, like I said, I don't want to suffer with anybody. I want to be able to give them my best. So because of that, I shouldn't have to suffer. And if they're willing to change their mindset or way of seeing things and what it is they're attracting, they shouldn't have to suffer anymore either.
Ashe. From this moment on, I will never be compassionate again. I may be empathetic, but now I got to go back and.
There you go, man. Empathy is a good thing.
Okay.
Empathy is better than sympathy. Empathy is what we need. We need to be empathetic, So yeah, there you go.
Ashe.
But you don't need to be no empath.
Right. You do that.
Yeah.
Bob, we're gonna get you out of here on this question. This is the last question.
Hey man, don't rush now. You guys were late.
Cut that out. We're gonna have to cut that out.
Touche. So I study people like Louise Hay. I dibble and dabble a little bit in Taoism, and then so there's this concept, and even as priests of Ifa, right? We know that there are ailments that have a spiritual cause, and there are ailments that have a physical cause. And for ailments that have a spiritual cause, there's a spiritual fix, or there's spiritual medicine. For those that have a physical cause, then you have, Baz Moreno and things of that nature. How do you see that? Where are you in regards to that? And has Ifa and being a priest of Ifa kind of shifted your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, it has shifted my viewpoint, because before I didn't look at all the different aspects of healing. Now I have to see the different aspects of healing. But along with seeing them, I know of the possibilities that exist as well. So, as I said before, conventional medicine may say that something is not curable, but regardless of what level it may be on, be it spiritual, emotional, physical, it does not matter, because once we recognize that it is what it is, we now have the opportunity to make some changes. In all likelihood, the person may not want to change. And even having said that, when I think about death, I see all death is suicide, because I think that the person has decided to terminate their journey.
I say.
Wow.
So even if it's something violent, whether it be a homicide, if we talk about genocide, any type of side, when we start talking about it, I just see it all as suicide, because I'm seeing that, man, wait a minute. We've chosen to give up or to quit or to stop. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, family of the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast, we give you Dr. Baz Moreno. Baz, man, we greatly appreciate you sitting down with us. We wanted to share with the world, a little piece of what we get an opportunity to get on a regular basis, because, we're bothering you on a regular basis, all the time, all kind of. I know I
Oh,
probably
man.
you about 100.
Nah, man. You guys are never bothering me, man. You're not. In all honesty, you're not. And like I said, I know my questions to both you and Oseun are probably, more bothersome than what you can ask me. What you all asking me is what it is that I live for, what I know. Even Oseun reminds me sometimes, hey man, your old dude says this and that. Okay, I'm gonna read it.
Right.
So, no, seriously, man. I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate it, man. And both of you, man, like I said, regardless of your ages, you're two that I go to amongst some of the others. I go to you and let you know, hey man, I need some help with this. And you two have been very helpful, man. I know you two will be different type of priest than myself, but fortunately I have you that I can go to for things that I don't know and that I don't understand, so I think that we'll be able to help one another. There'll be cases where you'll have to refer people to me and vice versa, and I won't have any hesitation about doing so. I mean, I'm glad to have you two as Ibeji, and I'm glad that we were able to be initiated together. And, hey man, I appreciate you guys.
I say, thank you so much, family. I hope you. No. I know you enjoyed this episode. I know y'all learned some things. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. Take care of your bodies. I can't sit up here and say you only got one. You do only have one this lifetime. So take good care of it. We love you. We thank you for tuning in with us this week. We'll see you next week with another great episode. Until next time, life's a journey. Don't forget the map. Peace.
Peace.